inFamous Second Son is the first real non-launch title exclusive for the PlayStation 4. Thus, the hype for it was pretty insane. Of course, the largely successful inFamous 1 and 2 from the previous generation only helped to fuel the fire that is inFamous Second Son. In inFamous Second Son, you take control of the protagonist Delsin Rowe, an Akomish Native American graffiti artist. Right off the bat, Nelson comes into contact with a convict named Hank, and as fate would have it, this convict is what is called a conduit, a person whom possesses a special type of power. When Nelson makes contact with this conduit, he gets a glimpse into his mind and sees everything that this convict has seen. This brain overload knocks Nelson out briefly, and when he awakens, he learns that he has obtained the power of the convict, the power of smoke. Through a series of events, Nelson has his first confrontation with the antagonist, Brooke Augustine. Augustine is suspicious of Nelson because of his interaction with Hank, and as a form of interrogation, tortures his tribe people.
Yeah, I'm told that hurts.
Nelson learns that not only did the tribe people not give up Nelson's powers, but that Augustine herself is a conduit and has inflicted them with her concrete power, which is slowly killing them.
And I wouldn't want to get in the way of anyone's recovery.
Recovery? Hey, Delsin, these people aren't getting any better. They're dying, man.
You don't know that.
No, but the doctors who came through here when you were out, they do. And they said that... They said the only way those shards are coming out is the exact same way they went in.
After deducing that he can take Conduit's powers, he vows to take Augustine's powers and heal his people.
We just need her power.
Okay, now you've lost me.
From what I've played of the previous inFamous games, Second Son really delivers in terms of plot in comparison to those two. The characters themselves don't seem as one-dimensional in Second Son as they did in the previous titles. However, that doesn't really make them deep characters, nor do they have any real character development. One thing I left out of the synopsis is Delsin's brother, Reggie. I found the relationship between these two to be really engaging. While Nelson views his powers as a good thing, his brother exiles the idea, referring to it as a disease of sorts. Nelson wants to take other conduits' powers in order to become strong enough to take on Augustine and heal his people, whereas Reggie simply wants to get it cured so he can return to their old life. Eventually, Reggie aids Nelson in tracking down conduits, but never really budges from his view of these powers to be a disease. Oftentimes, Reggie will call the conduits different forms of evil, only fueling to the racism against conduits in this game. The treatment of the conduits rotates back onto Augustine as she is the leader of the DUP, the Department of Unified Protection, which is in charge of containing these conduits. Augustine herself really carries the story in my opinion. She is a fleshed out character with her own purposes. She isn't just blank antagonist numero uno, she's got reasoning. She is one of the most menacing characters in recent gaming history, despite not making too many appearances in the game. That was done brilliantly. Every time her face is on the screen, you know that she's gonna find something to just not give a shit about and cause trouble.
Still nothing.
In an attempt to not spoil any more of the plots, I'll just end that segment off here. Trust me, there is a lot more at play here than what I mentioned. I just really don't want to spoil it for anyone out there. I like the dynamic that this game creates, wherein conduits are referred to by the public people as these bioterrorists. It reminds one of a racism type scenario, which I feel is played pretty well, especially seeing as though this is a third-person open world game that is more about gameplay than anything else. First off, let's just get this out of the way. This is the most beautiful game on the PS4 currently, with no question. The art style, vivid colors, and dynamic contrast make this game an absolute treat to look at. All of the special powers and gunfire look outstanding. The PS4's hardware is clearly put to work here to process these images, as well as the jaw-dropping particle effect. However, it is obvious to see that the PS4 is being put to work because this game suffers from frame drops from time to time. It never really took too much away from the game for me, but it was still enough to notice and make me worry that maybe the PS4 is not as powerful as I thought. Then again, I'm sure with time, developers will figure out how to utilize this hardware, but it is still a concerning factor. Another knock I'll have to give the presentation is that some textures are flat and just straight up unattractive. Now this is a very rare occurrence, definitely more rare than those frame drops. However, when you come across them, it really staggers you because you just went from one of the best looking games out there to what is essentially an eyesore. The lack of textures are most present in Delsin's face, which is unfortunate because that's where I would have liked to see them be most prevalent. But then we move on to the sound. I was absolutely blown away. The sound effects of gunfire, wind, powers, footsteps, climbing, everything is just purely orgasmic. So much minute details were put into this game. Playing with the headset or surround sound system will really add to this game's experience by significant amounts. And then there's the music. Again, flawless. The music can be subtle, action-packed, sentimental, whatever it needs to be to fit that situation. The sound is just perfect. This is why you were probably interested in inFamous Second Son. I may ramble here, so long story short, it's got its caveats, but this is clearly the strong suit in the game. And it's exactly what it's supposed to be. Fun. Added on to that, this game is super fast-paced and super fluid despite getting minor frame drops every so often. According to reports, inFamous runs at 30 frames per second, and this is why I will always stand my ground in that FPS does not matter. Playing and watching this game, it feels and looks like constant 60 frames per second. Regardless of what it's really running at, this game is super smooth, so no complaints from me on that front. Throughout your 10+ hour adventure, you will be mainly traversing through the gorgeous open world of Seattle or fighting various baddies. Unfortunately, inFamous Second Son suffers from the third-person open world game trope of fighting what feels like countless enemies. inFamous also has more intelligent AI than your average third-person game. So what do you get when you have to fight countless smart enemies? Frustration. There are several parts in the game that made me tightly squeeze my controller in anger. Another gripe that I have with this gameplay is that I feel like it wants to have stealth elements, but it simply just does not have any support for them whatsoever. There are many sections in this game that have areas absolutely littered with enemies. It would be simply stupid to run in their powers blazing, right? Well, the game offers no other alternative. For example, there are several DUP bases filled with enemies and turrets fully equipped with surveillance cameras. Now my thought process was, sweet, I'll take out these cameras as to not alert anyone, sneak in there, and do what I need to do. However, no matter what happens, it will end in a showdown of you blasting at enemies for what feels like forever. This is because after attacking one enemy, or hell, even showing your powers whatsoever, will alert every bad guy in Seattle. I know this game isn't supposed to have anything remotely to do with stealth, but I can't shake the feeling that just the option would have added so much depth into this game. Now I want to mention the enemies. There really isn't too much variation in between them. The standard guys will require one combo to finish, and others may need a little work put into them. However, due to the AI being so good, it never really gets stale seeing the same enemies. It really does feel like each battle is totally different and unique. I know a lot of early reviews for inFamous Second Son criticized it based upon its lackluster boss battles. However, I never really got that sense from the game. I mean, sure, they weren't really amazing or really too stand out, but I mean, they served as really intriguing and fun boss battles for me, and really that's what I want out of a boss battle. If it grabs my attention and it's just fun overall, then I think that is a good boss battle in my opinion. So I really don't agree with the early reviewers on that one. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk powers. All of the powers are unique and diverse and have their own pros and cons. No one power feels truly better than any other. there will always be combat situations where you wish you had this power as opposed to the other. The main difference in between powers I found was the way they allow you to traverse the world. This is honestly what made inFamous so damn enjoyable. Just scaling huge buildings and absorbing the sights with these powers was simply invigorating. I honestly believe traveling is one of Second Son's best features. You can unlock various travel points throughout the game, but you would simply be batshit insane to do so when you can utilize these amazing powers instead. Up until this point in the video, all I have shown is the smoke ability. Now there are 4 abilities that you get in this game, which I'm about to talk about. So if you don't want these abilities spoiled for you, I won't be spoiling any of the story segments just yet. It'll just be the powers themselves. If you don't want the powers themselves spoiled for you, then click the screen right now and be skipped ahead to where I'm not talking about the powers. First off is smoke. When you first get this ability, it is downright amazing. Probably even more enjoyable than Cole's lightning from the previous titles. You've got your standard smoke shots, ground pound, hover, etc. However, Second Son adds something new to each ability, a maneuver feature. With this ability, you're able to turn into a cloud of smoke and burst forward, allowing you to travel through vents, fences, and the like. In comparison, this ability feels less fun than the other ones because they add more in the mobility department, which is one of my favorite things in the game. Generally, I use the ability that made it the most fun to travel at that specific time. Smoke was never one of them. However, later on in the game, smoke becomes the most useful in battle due to its ability that can make enemies staggered in a fairly large radius, which is huge in this game since you're oftentimes fighting so many enemies at once. Overall, smoke is the more balanced ability in the game, its strong suit being that it provides good crowd control. The second ability is Neon. This ability shows just how beautiful this game is, and it's no slouch itself. This is mostly a semi-upgraded version of smoke with better mobility. You get to scale huge buildings by turning into a neon particle and just running. That is so satisfying. Also, thanks to the likes of upgrades, you can even start to sprint, then jump afterward, allowing for really satisfying travel. The downside to this ability is that as opposed to smoke, when using the maneuver feature, you nosedive downward as opposed to maintaining a sort of floaty state. In terms of combat, it is essentially akin to smoke with a less effective mode of crowd control. Thirdly, there's video, which makes absolutely no sense, but damn it if it isn't the best ability in the game. The reason this trumps all other abilities for me is because of its transportation technique. You sprout these huge beautiful wings which allow you to dash forward akin to smoke, but also allow you to fly up buildings akin to neon, both of which video does better. In terms of combat, video allows you to wield a huge sword which does massive damage, probably the most out of all of the abilities. However, its downside is that its attacks are very slow. So video excels at movement and single target attack damage. However, this game likes to throw a lot of enemies at you, so video may not be the best option for go-to attack power. Okay, so covering this last power will contain spoilers, so if you don't want the story spoiled, especially the ending, I highly advise you to click the screen right now and skip right ahead to the conclusion of this review. Last, and unfortunately kind of least, is the power you obtain from Augustine, Concrete. Now this shit is hyped up not even an hour into the game, and what a damn letdown. As a normal ability, it would have been just fine, but this is what made Augustine so frightening? This is a disgrace to her great character. It seriously feels like I could have walked in with my normal smoke power and just straight up pummeled her ass. The mobility on this power is the weakest in the game. It would have been badass if you could turn into that Rockman and dash forever while smashing everything in your path. Not only that, but the Rockman controls like absolute garbage. Similar to video, concrete attacks are strong but slow. However, you lose the ability to maneuver around quickly, which gives an edge to video. Its only upside is that when using the ability, you are able to take more damage, but I never once wanted to trade that for the ability to make a quick escape. The final nail in the coffin for this ability is that you obtain it literally at the very end of the game. This may be okay if you plan on playing afterward and completing the game to 100%. Even still, you get no bosses to flex this new ability on. The only person you get to use this ability on is Augustine at the very end in the game. All in all, incredibly underwhelming. All in all, inFamous Second Son delivers a very action-packed, just downright gorgeous and very fun game to play. It's also got a plot, while not really amazing, is definitely enough to keep you interested in the game for the 10 plus hours that you might be playing it. In regards to the famous karma system that inFamous implements in their games, nothing really stood out in this one. Nothing really grabbed at me and made me intrigued to go back and back, oh my goodness, I went with the good karma this run, but maybe I want to get the evil one this time. Nothing really stood out except maybe the first decision, but even then that one doesn't make any difference at all on the story. However, with that being said, while the road up to the ending of the game is not really too impacted by your decisions, the ending is. There are two completely different endings based upon which karma system you decided to go. I went on heroic for my first run. Does that mean that I'll be playing again on an evil playthrough? Probably not. This game doesn't really offer too much for me to replay the entire game from the beginning all over again. However, it does intrigue me enough to go back to my original save file and try to 100% the game. After putting about 10 hours into the game and completing it in terms of story, I was only left with about 60% of the game done. So there's still 40% there that I need to complete. And thus, that is very interesting for me, and I might actually go back and do that. Is this the system seller we've been waiting for? Is this going to be the game that moves units of PS4s? Probably not. But damn it to hell if it isn't a great perk to owning one. So is this the system seller we've been waiting for? Is this going to be what... I can't get that right. So, is this the system seller we've been waiting for? Is this going to be the game that moves units of PlayStation 4s? Probably not. And I got a fucking helicopter.